Okay, Rabotai. Erev Shabbat Shalom. So I'll give you a little background, generally how I prepare for a class before I give it. Usually I have no specific topic in mind. I just kind of open up the books and I see what sticks out. And based on that, if it talks to me, then I research the topic a little more, and then I develop a hidush, and then we give it over. This week, it was a little different, because I knew I wanted to speak about tzitzit. I knew I wanted to speak about it, and it was appropriate for two reasons. Number one, this week's Parsha talks about tzitzit. And number two, it's actually based on something that I saw many months ago in Parshat Vayera. It comes from a rabbi called Megalei Mukot. Megalei Mukot was a great Mikubal and chief rabbi in Krakow in the 1600s. His name was Rav Natan Shapira. Megalei Mukot. He comes along and he says a big hidush. And he says like this. He says, he actually doesn't start it off in Parashat Vayera. He begins with Parashat Ekev. It says by Parashat Ekev, V'haya Ekev Tishme'un, that if we will listen to the mitzvot, Hashem will give us a lot of bracha. Ekev Tishme'un, and then it lists a whole list of brachot that we will get based on the fact that we're following Hashem's mitzvot. However, says Megalei Mukot, that this word Ekev is referring to somebody in specific. He says, who's it referring to? It's none other than Avraham Avinu, alav shalom. And he says, and I'll prove it to you that it's referring to Avraham Avinu. How so? Because if you take Avraham Avinu, how old was he when he discovered HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Anybody know? Very good, 3 years old. The Midrash says that he was 3 years old when he discovered Hashem. And how old did he die? He was 175. So it turns out that Avraham Avinu, how many years of his life was he considered Eved Hashem? 172 years old, exactly. It says, Megalei Mukot, if you take the gematria of Ekev, which is Ayin, which is 70, and Kuf, which is 100, that's 170, plus the Bet, that's 172. Therefore, V'haya Ekev Tishme'un, if you're going to listen to the Ekev, Bizchut, which Ekev? Bizchut Avraham Avinu, because he is also called Ekev. Therefore, it says Megalei Mukot. I'll also show you another remez. Another remez how the word Ekev is in reference to Avraham Avinu. Megalei Mukot, he was able to, with his computer brain, to analyze and to search everywhere in the Torah, another place where it says the word Ekev. And I found it. They didn't have computers back in the day. I don't even think electricity was invented. I think electricity was around the 1800s, and Benjamin Franklin. But Megalei Mukot, without a computer, he was able to analyze everywhere in the Torah where does it say the word Ekev. And he said, I found it. I found it in Parshat Vayera when it says, we're supposed to read it every single day. After Avraham Avinu passed the test of Akedet Yitzhak, it says by the pasuk, Ekev asher shamata b'koli, that Avraham Avinu, because you listen to me, because you listen to my commandments in the 10 tests, by Lech Lecha, by sacrificing Yitzhak, by the Kivshan Ha'esh with Nimrod, I'm going to give you brachot. Therefore, it says Megalei Mukot that we have to connect the two Ekevs. The Ekev by Ekev asher shamata b'koli, and the Ekev of V'haya Ekev Tishme'un. How do we connect these two? He says, because of the Ekev, because of Abraham, we get the brachot of Ekev. V'haya Ekev Tishme'un. But it says Megalei Mukot, bizchut what in Abraham do we get these brachot of V'haya Ekev Tishme'un? He says it's bizchut the mitzvah that Hashem gave Abraham. Now, Rabbi, I'm not aware of any mitzvot that Hashem gave Abraham. In fact, the Torah tells us that Abraham Avinu there was no Torah even. So how did Abraham get a mitzvah before the Torah was actually given? Says Megalei Mukot, if you look in Rashi on the spot and where it says V'haya Ekev Tishme'un, says Rashi over there, which mitzvot are we referring to? It's a mitzvot she'adam dash ba'akevav. The brachot that come in Parshat Ekev are a direct result of these mitzvot that a person stamples on with his heel. It's the mitzvot that we don't show appreciation for. The mitzvot that we're already used to. Because the person is used to mitzvah, therefore he treats it with a little with less dignity than it should be treated. And therefore, says Rashi, V'haya Ekev Tishme'un, which type of mitzvot are we going to get reward for? It's the mitzvot she'adam dash v'akevav. It's these mitzvot that a person got used to so much doing that eventually he loses his excitement for the mitzvah. And it's that type of mitzvah apparently that Avraham Avinu got that he's giving over to us that we're going to get the brachot for. But this is Megalei Mukot. Which mitzvah is that? Which mitzvah that Hashem gave Abraham that we treat it very lightly, that it's bizchuto, we're going to get all the brachot in Parshat Ekev. Says Megalei Mukot, I found the source. The source is the Gemara. We all know the story. That after Abraham Avinu, he was Mizazel bin Nimrod. He basically proved Nimrod wrong, that he wasn't the God And Nimrod told everybody that he was the God of the world. And Abraham, he basically proved him wrong. He said, Nimrod, if you're the God, instead of making the sun rise in the east, let it rise in the west. And of course, Nimrod couldn't. And therefore, he took Abraham and he threw him inside the Kibshan Eish. When that didn't work, he spent his whole life trying to run out Abraham and basically drive him out of the popular opinion. What happens one day? Nimrod has an idea. It's actually during the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings. And Nimrod, he changed his name from Nimrod to Amraphel. And what happened? Amraphel, he goes and he captures Lot. Why does he capture Lot? Even though it's Abraham Avinu's nephew, because the Midrash tells us that they were twins with each other. They were the spitting image of one another. When you were looking at Lot, you thought you were looking at Abraham. Looking at Abraham, you thought you were looking at Lot. And therefore Nimrod had an idea. If I go ahead and I capture Lot, people are going to think that I captured Abraham, and therefore he's going to lose popular opinion. They're going to say, listen, if Hashem was really real, all this monotheism that Abraham Avinu, all these things that he's preaching, if Hashem was really real, would he allow me to capture Abraham? Must be not. Therefore he captured Lot as a plan to be mizazel in the Hashem of Abraham. All of a sudden, the Palit, which is Og Melech HaBashan, he comes along and tells Abraham, your nephew was captured. So Abraham, he takes Eliezer, or according to Midrash, 318 soldiers, and he goes after Nimrod in order to save Lot. And the Midrash says that Eliezer looks at Abraham and he tells him, Rabbi, how are we supposed to fight the 4 kings and the 5 kings? It's only just me and you. So he tells him, don't worry, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help. And we know the famous story that Hashem gave Abraham this special sand or dirt, that when Abraham threw it, it turned into 1 billion arrows. And he went and he killed anybody in its track. So Abraham ended up winning the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings. At the end of the day, the kings that were on the winning side, they come to Abraham and they say, Abraham, because you won the war, whoever is the winner deserves the spoils. And therefore you deserve to have all the money from the war. Says Abraham, I'm not going to take a red penny. And he tells them, the Lashon of the Midrash is, or the Lashon of the Torah is, Michut ad sroch hana'al. That I'm not going to take not a chut, not a string, and not sroch na'al, not even a leather strap. These things I don't want to take, because at the end of the day, if I take the spoils of the war, the kings are going to claim that I made Abraham Avinu rich. The person that made Abraham Avinu wealthy was because he won the war. And Abraham says, I don't want to get involved. The only person who gives parnasah in the world is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, since my purpose in the world is to make Kiddush Hashem, therefore I'm not going to take any money from the spoils of the war. Rather, Hashem gives the money. And his lashon is, Mihut ad sroch na'al, from the string until sroch na'al, which is a leather strap of the shoe. Therefore, says Magalei Mukot, or says the Gemara, that Bizchut Abraham used these words, Mihut va'ad sroch na'al. Hashem rewarded him in the exact same language. That Abraham Avinu, since you use the words Mihut ad sroch na'al, I'm going to give you a mitzvah that's going to involve chutin. And what's that? The mitzvah of tzitzit. Therefore, says the Gemara, that it's Bizchut that mitzvah that Abraham got, that he gave over to us, that for some reason, it's these mitzvot that we trample with our heel. That people, since we're religious and since wearing tzitzit is easy, therefore a person is mizazel, yala, it's just tzitzit, what's the big deal? Nachon, we wear it every single day, but it could be that the first opportunity we have, we take it off. And therefore says Rashi, according to Magen Amakot, that it's this mitzvah, she'adam dash b'akeva, which is the mitzvah of tzitzit, that all the barachot come from. And Rabotai, that's where I wanted to dafka analyze. If it's true that it's such a big mitzvah that we give all the barachot in Parshat Eikev, then why be'emet do we treat it so lightly? Like we learned last week, when a person has all these mitzvot and a person is hergel, when he's used to doing the mitzvah, like we said, he treats it with a little bit of disrespect because he's not aware of its significance. That's the point. And since the person is not aware of its significance, he could treat it in a lightly manner. And therefore, we learned last week the positive trait of Aaron Kohen was Shelo Shina. He didn't change from the way doing the menorah. From the 40 years he was lighting the menorah in the midbar, that's the same exact way he lit it day in and day out, because he was excited for the mitzvah. Therefore, I wanted to know, how do we excite ourselves for the mitzvah of tzitzit, that when we perform it, it does not become like mitzvot shadam dash b'akevav. How can we turn the mitzvah of tzitzit into something special that we know its significance, that a person will treat it with the proper respect and with the proper and do the mitzvah with the proper fervor? So Rabotai, that's where the class begins. I begin with source number 1 on the sheet. Says the Torah in this week's parasha. He says, "V'haya lachem letzitzit." You will have tzitzit. Uritem oto, you shall see them. Uzchatem kol mitzvot Hashem, and you shall remember all the mitzvot Hashem. V'asitem otam, you shall do them. V'lo taturu, you will not sway acharei levavchem, after your hearts, v'acharei einechem, and after your eyes. Asher atem zonim achareihem. Why lema'an tizkiru, so you shall remember va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, the mitzvot itself, v'item kedushim le'elokechem, and you will be holy to your God. So the question is, Rabotai, how by just looking at the tzitzit will I remember all the mitzvot? Says Rashi on the spot, Uzchatem et kol mitzvot Hashem, shebeminyan gematria shel tzitzit 600. Because if we take the word tzitzit, we could do it together. Tzadi is 90, Yud is 10, that's 100. So tzadi Yud, that's already 200. Plus the top, which is 400, altogether equals 600. So the gematria of tzitzit is 600. Continues Rashi, Ushmona hutim, you have 8 strings on each side, v'hamisha kesharim, and you have 5 knots on each string. Therefore, it says Rashi, 8 plus 5 is 13, 600 plus 13 is 613, Tayag mitzvot, according to Midrash Tanchuma. So that's how we're supposed to remember the mitzvot. By having the tzitzit is supposed to remind us of the mitzvot, and when we're reminded, we perform them. So, Rabotai, usually the minhag of the shiur is that I bombard you with questions. The truth is, I only have one question, and it comes from source number 2. It comes from the source called the Noam Elimelech. Noam Elimelech was a rabbi. His name was Rabbi Elimelech in the Zinsk. He says a klal. He says the klal is that in every generation, since the world has created, it's been our job to perform or to excel in certain mitzvot. As an example, by the Beit HaMikdash Rishon, their mitzvah that they had to excel in was the mitzvah of, let's say, emunah. They didn't have enough emunah in Hashem, so their mitzvah was emunah. Bizman Bait Sheni, in the second temple, they had to focus on achdut. They had sinat chinam. Every single generation has a certain mitzvah that they have to focus on in order to accelerate in it. Question is, what is the mitzvah of our generation that we have to accelerate in? Says the Noam Elimelech in source number 2. Bechol dor vador, yesh shoresh letaken mitzvah miyuchedet yoter misham mitzvot. In every single generation, there's a specific mitzvah that we have to fix more than any other mitzvah. Lemashal, this is for an example. B'dor hazeh, in our generation, shoresh letaken mitzvah tzitzit yoter misham mitzvot. We have to focus on the mitzvah tzitzit more than any other mitzvah. The question is, Rabotai, that's the only question of the shiur. What is the special connection between our generation and the mitzvah of tzitzit that we have to focus on it so much that says the Noam Elimelech, it's because of this mitzvah that we have to focus on the most. Simply,
it's the same generation?
Yeah. So when he said generation, it means in millennia in general. It means he's not talking in the 50, 60 years he was alive. In the general consensus of the Jewish people from his time on, the mitzvah that he had to focus on was tzitzit. My only question is, Rabotai, what is the special connection between our generation and the mitzvah of tzitzit that we have to focus on according to the Noam Elimelech? So simply, I can give a simple answer. Simply, it means that, well, we're not doing it, and therefore since we're not doing it, and therefore we have to focus on it. Masha'en Kain, the previous generation, like we're about to see, the mitzvah was done very carefully by the rabbis of the Gemara. If you look in source number 3, which is Gemara Shabbat, says the Gemara in Daf Kuf Yud Chet, V'amar bin Nachman, Titili, I'm going to have reward, I'm going to have sechar. Why? Dikiyamti mitzvah tzitzit, because I fulfill the mitzvah tzitzit. Amar le Rabbi Yosef berei de Rabba. Avuch b'may zehir tefei. He asks him, your father, in which mitzvah was he the most careful in? Amar le b'tzitzit. It was specifically in the mitzvah of tzitzit. So he tells him a story. Yom Hada, one time, he was going up a flight of stairs or a ladder. Ifsik leichuta, and one of his tzitziot, they were torn. And he did not move from that spot until he fixed his tzitzit. Rabotai, this is incredible, if you ask me. This is what the rabbis were concerned in. They were concerned that they shouldn't walk at all without the mitzvah tzitzit. For them, hardship in mitzvot, it didn't bother them. And the opposite, adrabah. When they had hardship in mitzvot, that was all the more reason to do it, because that's the way they showed their allegiance to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For them, hardship was no big deal. They wanted hardship when it came to performing mitzvot of God, because that's how they showed Hashem, this is how much I love you. Because even though that I'm having a hard time right now doing this specific mitzvah, I don't care. This rabbi did not move from that step until he fixed, even though it could be that he was standing there for hours. He didn't move until he fixed his tzitziot, so you wouldn't have to walk even arba amot without the mitzvah of tzitzit. What could we say in our generation? Are we as careful? I think it's the exact opposite. At the first sign of discomfort, we're right away ready to give up the mitzvah. If a person he wakes up in the morning, he has a slight sore throat, he has the sniffles, all of a sudden, I'm not going to shul. Why not? You're going to go to work after this, but for sure I'm not going to go because you have a sore throat. If a guy has a headache, he doesn't show up to night sit. If a guy's too tired, he doesn't do mitzvah. What is the shtuyot that we're going through that even though at the slight sign of discomfort right away, we throw in the towel? With the hachamim of the previous generation, it wasn't like that at all. Like I told you, the opposite. When they felt discomfort, that's when they excelled the most, because they knew that this is the way they showed their love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They tell a story about the disciple Rabbi, Reb Chaim Kanievsky's father, Reb Yaakov Kanievsky, the disciple Gaon. They say that when he was a soldier in the Russian army, they once put him as a guard outside of one of the silos in Russia, and it was freezing cold, and it was snowing outside, and there was one guard that was supposed to have guard duty they took turns to stand outside this facility and guard it. The only problem was they only had one coat, and whichever guard stood at the guard station, he's the guy that got the coat. And the rule was that after the first guard post, he finished his post, he would take off the jacket and leave it for the guard that was incoming. Okay, so now it's Rabbi Yaakov Kanievsky's turn, Stipel Gaon. It was his turn to guard the facility. He goes outside, and the soldier tells him, I left you the coat outside. As he's going outside, he notices that the coat that he left was on a tree, and now it was Shabbat. And says Rav Yaakov Kanievsky, I cannot move the coat from the tree, because if I move the tree, it's considered mukseh, and I might come to pull out one of the branches. Therefore, it says the disciple Gaon, I'm not going to take the coat unless it's misirut nefesh. Unless I feel like I'm about to die, I'm about to freeze to death, I'm not going to take the coat. And he said, but you should know, it's for technically speaking, it's mutar, because it's misirut nefesh, and it's sakanat nefashot if I stay outside. But says the disciple Gaon, I'm not going to take it until I mamash feel like I'm about to die. Therefore, he said that every single time he stood, he was reviewing Mishnayot Ba'al Peh, reviewing Gemara Ba'al Peh, and he said to himself, just another minute, I'll take the coat. Another minute, I'll take the coat. And each minute, it led to the end of his 6-hour shift, and he ended up not having to take the coat. And he went inside and he was absolutely fine. That was the level of the Chachamim. For us, all of a sudden, we have a slight, it's a little cold outside, I'm not going to shul. Stipel was able to go, staying outside in the freezing cold for 6 hours to guard the facility, all because what? Not to do Hilul Shabbat. They tell a story of Chacham Ovadia. I heard the story from his son, Rav Moshe Yosef. He tells the story that one time they were inside the house and they were looking for the Rav. I think it was to give him dinner, but they couldn't find him. He wasn't in his office, he wasn't in his bedroom, he wasn't in the living room, he wasn't in the kitchen, he wasn't anywhere. And they're looking, where could the Rav have gone? Where could the Rav have gone? And all of a sudden, they walk inside his bedroom, where they checked already before, and they see a book that was floating right above the bed. Let's say the bed was over here, and the book was floating right above the bed. So they approach the corner of the bed, and they see the Rav lying on the floor, reading a book like this. He said, Abba, are you okay? What happened? He goes, I'm fine. It just happens to be that I was laying down in the bed, and I slipped, and I fell down, and I was calling somebody, but nobody came. So I said, why should I sit here and waste time? I took out a book, and I began learning. That's why he had the sefer floating in the middle of the air. That was Chachamim. What would we do if we fell? We would go crazy, call the 911, call Hatzalah, I fell, somebody help me. Chacham Ovadia, no, he took a sefer and he would learn. So you're going to tell me, Rabbi, you're going to tell me, well, Rabbi, those are the Gedolim. The Gedolim, I can't relate. But for me, you're right, sometimes if I have a headache, if I'm cold, if I'm hot, I'm not going to do the mitzvot. It's hard for me. I'll tell you a story, Rabbi. This is incredible. And if you want afterwards, I'll show it to you on my phone. This was years ago, and I was praying Mincha Navit in Bnei Yosef, in Brooklyn and Avenue P. And I'll never forget that when I sat down in the minyan over there was a guy, must have been in his 80s, and he was sitting, he was reading Petach Eliyahu, and he had an oxygen tank connected to his nose, with a small thing connected, the tube was right down on the floor. And that oxygen tank was helping him breathe. But yet he still came into minyan. I would imagine if we had an oxygen tank connected to us, Bar Minan, what we wouldn't give an excuse not to go to shul. But this guy with the oxygen tank couldn't breathe, yet showed up to shul anyway just to pray Mincha Navit. That's not Gedolim, by the way, Rabotai. That is a regular guy that just wants to go to shul and pray. And the lesson from the Gemara is that even though that was the greatness of the Chachamim, and therefore what? So that's the way I can explain the Noam Elimelech. The reason why our generation has to fix the mitzvah tzitzit more than any other generation is because our generation don't wear tzitzit. The previous generation, they were makbid, and therefore our tikkun is we have to wear more tzitziyot. That could be a very simple explanation. But b'shutchem rabotai, I would like to go one step even deeper. It's based on the following few sources. It says the Gemara Menachot on Daf Mem Gimel, source number 4. Uritem oto, you shall see the tzitziot, uzchatem va'asitem. You shall remember them and you shall do them. Re'iyah mivi'ah lidei zechirah. When you see the tzitziot, it's going to remind you of the mitzvot. And zechirah, when you remember the mitzvot, mivi'ah lidei asiyah. You shall do the mitzvot itself. Says Rashi, re'iyah tzitzit mivi'ah lidei zechirah mitzvot. Exactly, by looking at the tzitzit, we remember the mitzvot. By remembering, we actually do them. And says Rashi, that's actually why the tzitzit are called tzitzit. Look at the next Rashi. Tzitzit Hashem uritem oto kimot mitzitz Min harakim, when a person is metzitz, when a person peeks out of the holes. That's why the mitzvah of tzitzit is called tzitzit, because the whole point of the mitzvah is for us to be looking at the tzitziot, and by looking at them, it reminds us of all the mitzvah. Therefore, if a person were to ask you in the street, why is the mitzvah of tzitzit called tzitzit? The answer is because it comes from the word metzitz, in order to stare. What am I staring at? I'm staring at the strings of the tzitzit in order to remind me of the mitzvah, and when I remember the mitzvah, I do the mitzvah. And in fact, that's what Shulchan Aruch says in source number 5. What's the point of tzitzit? Ikar mitzvah talit katan lil bosho al begadav. You wear it on your clothing, kedesh tamid yir'uhu. So you should always be looking at it. V'yiskor ha-mitzvot. And you should remember the mitzvot. I know, Rabotai, that traditionally this is a parasha class, but we should just know the halakha behind it. Why sometimes you see a lot of Ashkenazim, they wear the tzitzit outside, and we wear it inside. So if you want to tell me uzchatem, the whole point is to remember the mitzvah by looking at it, but how does that explain our minhag of tucking it inside, where clearly it seems to be you're supposed to be wearing it outside? So if you look at the Mishnah Berurah, in source number 6, says the Havetz Chaim, Yir'uhu, right? We're supposed to see the mitzvah. Or the tzitzit itself. Kimo diktiv, like it says in the pasuk, uritem oto uzchartem. Ve'otan ha'anashim, and those people, those men, hamisimim ha'tzitzit b'michnasayim shelahem, that tuck their tzitziot inside their pants. Lo dai. It's not enough. Shema'alin enehem b'may diktiv. It's not enough that they're losing what it says in the pasuk, uritem oto uzchartem. We're supposed to see it, and they're not seeing it. They're tucking it inside. Od mevizin hen et mitzvat Hashem yitbarach. They're embarrassing Hashem yitbarach. Why is that? Atidin hen liten et din al zeh. And in the future, they're going to pay for it in Shamayim. Umasha omrim, and that which it says shulchi ben anochrim. So you're going to have some people that are going to say, well, I can't wear my tzitzit outside because I'm working all day in the city. In the city, there's a lot of goyim, so they're going to make fun of me because of the tzitzit. Says the Havetz Chaim, no, lazeh hayad dai shesimu hatzitzit b'toch kenaf. You don't have to tuck it inside your pants. Just tuck it inside the corner. If they had a beautiful gift from a human king, that he engraved his name on this gift and he gave it to you, they would wear this gift and they would show it off to everybody. Look what the king gave me. I think I read recently that there was the 30th president of the United States. I think his name was Calvin Coolidge. So he gave, one time there was a British soldier that saved a capsizing ship of American Marines. And he single-handedly saved the entire boat. He saved many Americans because of it. And as a gift, Calvin Coolidge, he gave him a 14-karat gold pocket watch. And he engraved it, the thank you for your service in saving Americans. And it was well known, the legend has it, that this man, this British soldier, he wore that watch everywhere, to every single party, to every single, he went to sleep with it, hakol, because what? And he said, the President of the United States, he gave me this watch. Therefore, if what? Melech Basar Adam, he gave us an impressive gift, we wear it all the time. Therefore, it says the Havetz Chaim, Kal v'chomer b'tzitzit, or the most should be the case of tzitzit. What? That we're going to see in a minute, that it has Hashem's name that are engraved in the tzitzit. And therefore, just like if we got a gift from the president, we would show it off, so too, this tzitzit is a gift from God. Therefore, we should be showing it off. How honored is the man that wears Hashem's name on him. The Hazal and the rabbis tell us, those people who are careful in the mitzvah tzitzit, they are zochet to see Hashem's presence. Those people who see the Mashiach, they're going to exemplify this mitzvah of tzitzit. They're going to hold on to the corner garment of the ish Yehudi. And the rabbis tell us in the Gemara Shabbat, Kol hazehir b'mitzvah tzitzit zocheh u'mshamshin lo shnei alafim u'shmoneh me'ot avadim. Those people who are careful in the mitzvah tzitzit latid lavo, they're going to get 2,800 servants that are going to be mishameshim when a Mashiach comes. Therefore, incredible. According to the Shita of Havetz Chaim, Yehudim, the point of the pasuk is uritem oto. We're supposed to see the mitzvah itself. How do you see it? You're supposed to take it out of your pants, and that's the way you're supposed to wear it. So you should always remember the mitzvah itself. However, according to our minhag, we don't do that, right? We tuck it in. What's the source of that? If you look at the Kaf HaChaim in the very next source, in source number 7, it says the Kaf HaChaim, Ikar mitzvah talit katan lebush al begadav. You're right, according to Shulchan Aruch, we're supposed to wear it on our clothing. However, it says the Kaf HaChaim, Mihu, Rabbeinu ha'arizal, haya lobsho lemata mishan malbushav al gabe haluko. The Rabbeinu Ari, he would always wear it inside his shirt, on top of his undershirt, and that's the way he would wear his tzitzit. He quotes the Shar Kavanot, and the very end he quotes the Kesher Gadol, which is the Chida, and he says, "V'katav sham b'shar hakavanot deotam hamitharim l'lbosho al kol begadim." Those people who wear the tzitzit outside, ta'ud gadol bi'adam hefeh ha'emet. It's a big mistake, and it's the opposite of the truth. So the Maaseh, you have a machloket Ashkenazim Sefaradim. Ashkenazim, they go like the Mishabura, they like to wear it outside, but the Sefaradim, we go like the Arizal, who says you wear it inside. Says the Yekut Yosef in the very next source number 8. Minhagenu shegam hatzitziot michusot tachat begadim. Even the strings, they are covered under the clothing. V'chein nagudu gedolei hadorot hasfaradim. That's the way the big rabbis of the Sephardic generation, that's the way they went. They tucked it inside. V'chein ra'ui lihiyot al pi Kabbalah, that according to the Kabbalists, a person should be tucking his tzitziot inside. The Ashkenazim, they wear it outside, but even according to them, if they're afraid that the goyim might make fun of them, they can tuck it inside. Rabotai, my point is just to show you, whatever the halacha is, my point is to show you that even according, benkach or benkach, whether you're Ashkenaz, whether you're Sephardi, that you're wearing it inside, the point is to always look at the tzitzit. Even if you're tucking it inside, once in a while to take it out and look at the tzitzit itself. When you're looking at it, it's supposed to bring you to a remembrance of the mitzvah, and when you're remembering it, then you come to perform it. But Rabotai, I'll tell you a secret, that the truth is that besides this segula of remembering the mitzvah and performing the mitzvah as we look at the tzitzit, and therefore that's the point of them, to always look at them to remember the mitzvah, there's a much bigger segula that the tzitzit, what they protect us from. And it comes from a Gemara in Menachot Daf Mem Dalet. Same Gemara that we quoted before, different pages, source number 9. This Gemara might need a little maturity on the audience side, but just bear with me. The Gemara is incredible. It says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Natan, Ein lecha kol mitzvah kala. There is no mitzvah, however minor, however small, that's written inside the Torah, that each one of these mitzvot, however minor, we get a reward for them in this world. Says the Gemara, Olam haba, however, in the next world, I don't know exactly how much reward we're going to get for the minor mitzvot. Says the Gemara, I want to teach you a lesson from the mitzvah tzitzit. There was a story of one man. He was very careful in the mitzvah of tzitzit. He heard that there was a prostitute on the other side of the river that took 400 gold coins for her service. And what happened? So what happened? He zelled her 400 gold coins. And he set a time with her. When the time came, he went and he sat on the outside of her door. So the woman's maidservant, she came inside the room where this prostitute was staying. This man that sent you the 400 gold zuz, he's sitting at the front door. He should come in. So he came in. Says the Gemara, she set up for him 7 beds. 6 of the beds were made of silver, and the last bed was made out of gold. And if you see the contention of the Gemara, it wasn't just spread around the room. She put it as bunk beds, 1 bed on top of the other, 6 beds of silver and 1 bed of gold. And between each one of these beds, sulam shel kesef, it was a ladder of silver. The Elyonah, and the toppest bed, shel zahab, was made out of gold. What happened? She went and she sat on the most upper layer of the beds. And he also went on top and he sat next to her on the 7th bed. And what happened before the Avira itself? So this his 4-corner garment, his tzitzit, it came and it slapped him on the head. When the Gemara said that he was arum, it must have been not arum, it was lav dafka, because he was clearly wearing his tzitzit. It hit him on his face. So what happened? He had second thoughts and he decided not to go through with it. Nishmat. He went back down, and he went and he sat down on the floor. She also went and she sat down, and she says, Amra lo, Gapal shel Romi, I swear on the Hashuv people of Rome, I will not leave you alone until you tell me what blemish did you see in me that you decided not to go through with this act. Amar le, so he tells her back, Ha'avodah, I swear. שלא ראיתי אישה יפה כמותך אלא מצווה ציצית אלא מצווה אחת ציוונו השם אלוקינו. He goes, I swear to you that I have not seen a more beautiful woman than you. However, he says, there's one mitzvah called tzitzit that Hashem commands us, v'tzitzit shema, and it's called tzitzit. Viktiv ban, it says in this mitzvah, Ani Hashem Elokechem. Shtei pamim. It says that twice. What is that coming to tell me? Ani hu she'atid lifra, v'ani hu she'atid lishalem. That Hashem in the future, He is going to be the one that punishes, and Hashem in the future is going to be the one who rewards. Sechar. V'achshav nidmu alai dalet edim. And these tzitziot, these 4 strings, they're going to come and they're going to testify against me. Amra lo. So she tells him back, Eni marchinecha ad shetomar li ma shemacha. I'm not going to leave you alone until you tell me what is your name. Ma shem erecha. What is the name of your city? Ma shem rabbecha. What is the name of your rabbi? Ma shem midrashecha. And what is the name of your midrash? She'ata lamad bo Torah. The midrash that you learn Torah in. Incredible, Rabbi. Even though this guy was willing to commit an averah with the zonah, he still had the name of a rabbi, still had the name of a beit midrash which he learned in. It's something incredible that even though the guy could be doing the most averot hamurot, he still has a beit midrash, he still has a rabbi that he's connected to. Says the Gemara, Katav, he wrote her down all these things, v'natan biyada, and he put it inside her hands. Amda, so she got up, v'chilka kol nechaseha, she got up and she split all her assets. Shalish lemalchut, she gave a third to the government. Shalish le'aniyim, a third to the poor people. V'shalish nitala biyada chutz me'otan matzaot, and the other third she took with her in her hands, including the beautiful beds that she set up for this man, the ones that were made of silver and gold. So she came to the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Hayya and she told him, Amar lo, Rabbi, tziva alai va'asuuni giyoret. I want you to convert me to Judaism. Amar le, so he tells her back, Biti, my dear daughter, Shema einayich natat be'echad min hatalmidim. Maybe the reason why that you want to convert is because you saw one of my students and you want to marry them? She tells him no. The opposite. Hotzia kitav miyada v'natana biyado. She takes out this letter that this man wrote for her and she puts inside the rabbi's hands. And what happened? V'amar la lechi zechi b'mikehecha. Go and be zoche. Go and take possession of your purchase. Otan matzaot shetzia lo bi'isur. These beds that you set up for him, bi'isur, that you weren't allowed to, hitzia lo beheter. Now you could set it up for him in heter. That is the reward by Olam Hazeh. At the end of the day, she ended up converting and she ended up marrying this student of Rabbi Hayya that originally wanted to do the Avirah he wanted to be with her in a Avirah state. He actually got to be with her in a Heter state. What is the point of the story, Abu Tai? The point of the story is to tell us that this guy, since he was makbid on the mitzvah of tzitzit, but not only was he makbid, he also stared at his tzitzit all day long. That tzitzit was able to protect him from the avera of arayot, specifically of immorality, of promiscuity. And how do I know that? Because the Sfat Emet says it. On the Gemara itself, you look at source number 10, Sfat Emet, this person that was careful in the mitzvah tzitzit, hayinu, she'istakel b'tzitzit, he would stare at his tzitzit. And because he stared at it, says the Sfat Emet, kamo shekatav b'haderim, tehu anaf mitzvah l'kayim u'ritem oto b'zuchut zeh ba'olo tzitzit al panav. That's why, because he was always staring at his tzitziot, that's why they came and they slapped him on the head. Since he was careful to look at them, because he was so careful to look at them and to kiss them, that's why specifically they came and to protect him. They protected him from the mitzvah or from the avirah of arayot, of immorality. And the rabbis, they learn it from the semichut. It says in the pasuk, if you just bear with me and you look at the source number 1 again, in the pasuk that we read, it says, you shall stare at them, and the very next word is velo taturu. So because of uritem oto, because you're going to stare at them, you're going to be saved from the avirah of lo taturu, of not swaying against your heart, which is the mitzvah, which is the avirah of arayot. In fact, the very next source, in number 11, he says this, the matzat shimurim. He says like this, he says, ki chachamenu, our rabbis, bikshu lemadenu b'sipur zeh. What was the lesson behind the story? Shemitzvat tzitzit hi segula lishmor al adam me'etzar ta'avot. It's this mitzvah of tzitzit that's going to protect us from the yetzara of ta'ava, of nashim. And they learned this from the juxtaposition of the two words. You can turn the page. Hashem ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם ופירוש ההסתכלות בציצית. When a person looks at his ציציות, היא סגולה נפלאה. It is an amazing סגולה לקיים את כל מצוות ביקום ועשה. Not only does it remind us of the mitzvot and it tells us that we should go fulfill them, however, even something deeper. והיא גם שמירה שלא יטור אדם אחרי לבבו ועיניו המסרסים את האדם לעבירה. It's a סגולה to keep a person's heart and a person's eyes from committing avirot hamurot, like the avirah of arayot and immorality. And based on this, Rabotai, he explains a pasuk in Mishlei. The pasuk in Mishlei says, "No if isha chaser lev. That anybody who commits adultery, he's what's considered chaser lev. He's missing a heart. Simply means he's devoid of sense. Anybody who commits adultery, the guy has got to be out of his mind. He's crazy. He's devoid of sense. However, says the Rabbi, incredible. Kilomar, im anu ro'im adam shenichshal chas v'shalom be'inei kedusha. If we see a person that, God forbid, is falling in this avera of bikdusha, that he's not watching his eyes properly, he's looking at things he shouldn't be, and God forbid he's committing adultery. Hasiba lekach he chaser lev. The reason because he's missing a heart. Now, Rabotai, if I were to count how many strings are on each side, right? There are 8 strings on each side. 8 times 4 is 32. That the reason why a person is chas v'shalom being nikshal in the avera of inine kedusha is because he's being chaser lev. Lev is gematria 32. Because he's chaser lev, because he's missing these 32 tzitziot that he's not wearing, that's why he's being nikshal in inine kedusha. Shechisra lo hasegula shel lev chutim sheish bedal kanafim. The person is missing these 32 tzitziot, which is gematria of lev. He's considered chaser lev. He's missing his heart. He's missing the 32 tzitziot, and that's why he's not being protected from the avera of arayot in the inine kedusha. And that's the point, Rabotai. The point is that that's what the mitzvah of tzitzit does. When we wear it and we stare at it, it not only does it remind us of the mitzvah, of all the mitzvot, and we're supposed to be doing them, like the gematria of tzitzit, but it also protects us from the averot. Just like Rashi says in source number 12. You look at Rashi, in number 12, he says, V'lo taturu achari lebavchem kemum mitur haaretz. There you go, this week's Parsha Shelach. That what? That the spies, they went latur haaretz. They went in order to spy out the land. And the word V'lo taturu comes from the words latur haaretz. Come to spy out the land. What does my eyes and my heart have to do with spying out? It says Rashi, a person's heart and a person's eyes, they are the spies of the body. They see the avera and they want to commit it. It says Rashi, the eye sees the avera, and the heart desires it. The haguf will say at the avera, and the guf itself, he commits the avera. And that's the point, Rabotai. The point is that our tzitziot, they have a dual purpose. Purpose number 1 is, which is a very important purpose, that we should look at the mitzvot, see the mitzvot, remember them, and to perform them. That applies to everything. But more importantly, it's a segula for us to be protected from the avirot of arayot and from the avirot of immorality. Now, Rabotai, listen to the next hidush. For the next point, you need a small introduction, very small. Parsha Kititze in Devarim, we read about a very interesting story called the Isha Yifat Torah. What is the Isha Yifat Torah? That happens to be that as a one-time dispensation, the Torah allows us that if you have a soldier in the army, and the soldier, while he's in the army and he's fighting against the opposite side, if he sees a woman, even though the woman is a goya, he's allowed to marry the woman. It's mutar for him. One-time dispensation, that is called the mitzvah of Isha Yifat Torah. Says the Torah in source number 13, V'ra'ita bashivya, you will see her in captivity, Isha Yifat Torah, a beautiful woman. V'chashakta ba, you shall have a desire for her. V'lakachta lecha li'isha, you will take her as a wife. Says the Rashi, V'lakachta lecha li'isha, lo dibra Torah ele keneged yetzahara. The reason why the Torah allows you to take this woman, who's a goya, by the way, as a wife for yourself, is because the Torah knows the weakness of a human being. He knows the Yetzirah. He knows the Yetzirah exists. Therefore, the Torah says, if we don't allow this man to take this woman beheter, with permissibility, he's going to end up taking her be'isur anyway. He's going to end up taking her either way. And therefore, the Torah decides to allow this woman to be mutar to him, so he doesn't do it be'isur. It says Rashi, if Hashem does not allow this marriage to take place, he's going to take her. He's going to take her anyway, and therefore, on this piece of Gemara, there's an unbelievable Sar Shalomi Belz, the Belz Rebbe, and he explains this Gemara in a very incredible fashion. He says in source number 14, Mashi Peresh Rashi. That which Rashi told us. Again, I'm focusing on the words Lo dibra Torah ela keneged yetzehara. The reason why the Torah allows us to take this woman is because the Torah is talking Lo dibra Torah ela keneged yetzehara. Focus on those words. That it's specifically talking against the yetzehara. Says the Sar Shalomi Belz, Mashi Peresh Rashi, Parsha Kititze, B'Yifat Torah, V'lakachta lecha li'isha. You shall take her as a wife. Lo dibra Torah ela keneged yetzehara. Al pi ha'mevu'ah b'Shulchan Aruch. There's a halacha in Maran. In Or Hayim, says Maran, She'im Haiser Chut Echad Adan Hatzitzit Keshera, that even if, let's say, a person is wearing his tzitzit on the 32 strings and one of the strings they break, Lahalacha lemaaseh, the tzitzit are still kasher. There's still nothing wrong with it. However, says the Sar Shalom, Ulam, kol zehu benogeh lahalacha. Halachically speaking, these tzitzit that have 31 strings are kasher. However, but if you want the tzitzit to protect you from isur, from immorality, you specifically need 32 strings. And therefore says the Sar Shalom, all this that he just said is actually found in Rashi. Rashi said all these things, but he said it in a very secretive manner. He says the Sar Shalom, how do he explains it? He says, Hinei, this is what Rashi meant when he said, Lo dibra Torah. Again, keep the words in front of you. Lo dibra Torah. That if a person has lamed aleph strings, person has 31 strings, dibra Torah. Midoraita, the strings are kasher. The tzitzit are kasher if he has lo. Lamed aleph tzitziot, dibra Torah. Says the Torah it's kasher. However, ella, keneged yetzer hara. If a person wants to be protected from the yetzer hara, he needs ella strings. What's ella strings? Aleph, lamed, aleph, 32. In order to be kasher midoraita lo dibra Torah, the Torah says lamed aleph is enough. However, if you want to be protected keneged yetzer hara, you need ella. What's ella? Aleph, lamed, aleph is specifically 32 strings. Says the Sar Shalom, lamed aleph daika. It specifically uses the word lamed aleph lo. Im yesh lo lamed aleph chutim, if he has lo chutim, ki chaser echad min hachutim, because one of them is missing. Hinei al kach dibra Torah. Torah says it's kasher. שהציצית כשרה, no problem. אבל עדיין לא יוכל להתגבר על היצר הרע, but with 31 strings, there's no סגולה to protect you from יצר הרע. אלא כנגד יצר הרע, but you need אלא. אלא דייקה, again, he used the word specifically אלא to tell me, אם יש למד ברחותים, if you have א' למד plus א', which is 32, if you have 32 strings, כמספר אלא, הרי זה מסוגל, כנגד יצר הרע, לבטלו. And that's דווקא what it is, רבותיי. You specifically need these 32 strings that protects you from the Yetzirah. It's based on this Rabotai that we explain an unbelievable story in Tanakh, which we explained many times before, but hitting it from this side is incredible. We all know the story of Yosef and Eshet Potiphar. Let's review it for 1 second. Yosef HaTzadik, he sold at a young age, at the age of 17, by his brothers to Egypt. And Egypt, they sell him to a very wealthy man known as Potiphar. And in Potiphar's house, Yosef HaTzadik has a constant battle with his Yetzer hara. Every single day in and day out, the wife of Potiphar, which we'll call Mrs. Potiphar, every single day she is tantalizing him and begging him to commit avirat with her. And every single day, Yosef, he's abstaining. He tells her no. Every single day. Says the Gemara, says the Torah, until one day it was kayom hazeh. It was one day when the house was empty that she finally decided, you know what, this is going to be the day where I am victorious over Yosef. And says the Torah that she grabbed him by his shirt, she grabs his shirt and she said, Shichva imi, lay with me. And says the Torah that Yosef, he let her have his shirt and he jumped out the window. My question always was on this story, why Dafka did Eshet Potiphar wait so long to grab onto his shirt? Like, you want the guy anyway, so if you have Yetzirah towards the guy, why did she wait specifically, who knows how many days, in order to finally make a move on Yosef? Anyway, we know all the remazim, all the innuendo she was making for him, so why not just go it straight, grab him by his shirt from the beginning, and fulfill your heart's desires? Why did she wait specifically so long? Secondly, why did Yosef wait so long to run out of the house? Again, you're working for the guy for a couple of years, let's say, and she's tantalizing you day in and day out. Why did Yosef wait so long to run out of the house when he could have done it much earlier before? Listen to Peshat of the Chachmot Torah, which is Rav Shlomo Kluger. He says incredible. He says like this: "V'tipseu bebigdo." She grabbed on to his shirt. Says Rav Shlomo Kluger, "Shetapsa v'lakecha mimenu et beged hatzitzit." When she grabbed onto his shirt and she said Shichva imi, she specifically held on to his tzitzit. Biyada'a shekol zman shelbash hatzitzit, because she knew that as long as Yosef HaTzadik is wearing the tzitzit, lo tuchal yitgaber alav, she knew that she had no chance. And that's why she specifically had to wait for a day where the house was empty, so she had the ability to grab onto his shirt to take away his tzitzit, because she knew that as long as he's wearing tzitzit, I have no chance. Therefore, one day when the house was empty and there's nobody around, she said, now is my chance. Once I grab that tzitzit away from him, he has no more chance to fight against me. Therefore, says the Shlomo Kluger, Ki yovo hatzitziot v'tapchu al panav. She knows that if he's wearing the tzitzit is going to stop him from doing averah. And therefore, it says the Shlomo Kluger in the next paragraph, V'zeu biur hakatuv. That's why the pasuk says, Ve'azvu bigdov etzla mi'anos, that he left the shirt in her hands and he ran away. He ran outside. The entire time that Yosef HaTzadik was wearing the tzitzit, that answers our question. Why did Yosef HaTzadik run away? That's just why should he? He had no reason to. He's making good money. He's okay. He's not going to fall prey to the Yetzer Hara because he's wearing his tzitzit, and he knows that. He knows that as long as I'm wearing the lam b'bet chutim, I'm protected. Can I get a Yetzer Hara? Therefore, I don't need a reason to run because I'm protected. However, once she took it away from him, as long as I'm wearing it, I'm protected. After she grabbed onto his shirt, and she took away his protection, he knew that at that moment he's doomed, and if he hangs around any moment longer, he's going to be l'chshal. He's going to mess up in the avera. Therefore, he said, if my tzitzit are off, if my spiritual bulletproof vest is not on, then I'm finished. And therefore, he had to run out of the house as fast as he could. Therefore, he became smart. I have a secret to tell you. This whole story with Yosef and Eshet Potiphar, it wasn't a one-time deal and done. It's not what happened. Really, since an avera was about to take place in the story, therefore, these two characters of Yosef and Eshet Potiphar, they needed a tikkun. And the tikkun came in the form of Gilgul. That these two Bible characters, Yosef and Eshet Potiphar, they had to come back as Gilgulim in order to fix this avera of possible falling into Noef to be an adulterer. And the question is, in which form of Gilgul did they come back in? If Yosef HaTzadik and Eshet Potiphar were about to commit an avera, and because of that, they needed to come back in the form of Gilgul, in which story did they come back in the form of Gilgul in order to fix this sin or possible sin that they were about to commit? Rabotai, have any suggestions? What?
Story.
Oh, very good. At least someone is listening. Says the Arizal on source number 16. Says the Arizal, source number 16 in Sefer HaLikutim, Ki oto talmid, that Talmid that we read about in Gemara Menachot and Daf Mem Daled that wanted to commit Aviran, that paid 400 zuz, an exorbitant amount of money in order to be with this woman. That Talmid, says Rabbeinu Ari, Sha'ama bin Nisayon hakashe b'zchut dal tzitziyotav shebau v'tapchu al panav, that this guy that had his 4 tzitziyot that came and smacked him on the face, Haya hanitzot shel Yosef HaTzadik, he came back as a spark of the kedusha of Yosef HaTzadik, v'ilu ha'isha hanochrit, and this goy woman that ended up converting, she'emida oto b'nisayon. What happened? Hayita nitzot shel Eshet Potiphar. And based on this, we finally understand the Midrash. Because the Midrash comes along in source number 17. The Midrash says that the truth is Eshet Potiphar, Mrs. Potiphar, the whole kavanah of her wanting Yosef wasn't l'shem avera. She was actually l'shem shamayim. She wanted Yosef because she saw, says the Midrash, ki Eshet Potiphar hit kavanah l'shem shamayim. Her whole point was for the honor of God. How do we know that? Damar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Ro'ah hayita bi'ista rogolin shela. She saw in the astrologers in her stars, she saw in the future, shehi atida la'ami menu ben, that the stars said that in the future she was supposed to have a child with Yosef. However, lo hayita yodat imimena o mibita, she didn't know that it was going to be from her or whether it's coming from her daughter. And the truth is, physically, it was from her daughter, because Yosef ended up marrying Osnat, which is the child of Eshet Potiphar, and ended up having Menashe and Ephraim. But according to the Arizal, we could explain that no, she was right the whole time. It wasn't going to be that she had a child from Yosef through her daughter. She actually ended up marrying Yosef in the story of the Gemara in Menachot Daf Mem Daled. She actually ended up, whatever she saw in the stars, that Atid Lavo, she's going to be with Yosef. The truth is, she wasn't with Yosef in the story of Gemara Menachot, when this tzaddik ended up marrying the Zonah that he was going to be with it, and at the end she ended up converting. Now, so we see tremendous benefit, tremendous spiritual gain. Now, when we have the tzitziyot on, it affords us this incredible protection of through avirot and through segula of these mitzvot. And that's why maybe that Arizal says in source number 18, he says that Arizal shaka banot in drush tzitzit, he says veda ki ha'adam tzarich listakel b'tzitziyotav b'chol sha'a berega. A person has to always be looking at his tzitzit every single moment. Kemo she'amar hakatuv uritem oto v'hi to'el gadol l'neshama. Every time we look at our tzitzit, it brings a tremendous benefit to our neshama. Shelo yizdamer heit liyado im yizaher bekach, that no sin will ever come to his hand as long as he's wearing and looking at the tzitzit at the same time. V'gam yasig to'elet gadol, and also he's gonna reach great heights as long as he's wearing and looking at the tzitzit. And the truth doesn't make sense. Because if you look at the Shulchan Aruch, the way he spells out tzitzit, the way he talks about the tzitzit, you would think that Maran, who is the codifier law of Shulchan Aruch, he's just coming to tell you what is mutar, what is asur. And all of a sudden, when it comes to the mitzvah tzitzit, he throws in Kabbalah. If you look at the Lashon of the Shulchan Aruch in source number 19, he says, when the guy's looking at his tzitzit, mistakel b'shnei tzitziyotav shelefanav, sheish behem asara kisharim remez lehabayot. Incredible. Says Maran, when a person is looking at his tzitzit, he should be thinking, it has 10 kisharim, it has 10 knots. If you, in the first string it has 5, in the next string it also has 5. That's 10 altogether. And this 10 is supposed to remind you of what's called 10 havayot, the 10 names or the 10 attributes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you ask me, I only know the Yud Gimel Midot attributes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is Maran coming to tell me? That there's something called what's called 10 havayot, 10 attributes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you look in source number 20, which is the Mahatzita Shekel, he comes along and he says, Ki shemistakel b'shtei tzitziyotav asher lefanav. When a guy's looking at the two tzitzit, the strings that are in front of him, harei yesh bechot tzitzit chamisha kisharim. There are 5 knots in each one of the sides, which is 10 altogether. Ub'shtei tzitziyotav yesh asara kisharim, 10 altogether. Keneged asaram shemot havaya hamichuvanim keneged 10 midot shakadosh baruch hu bara u'manhig behem et olamo. There are 10 ways, 10 attributes in which Hashem created the world. And these 10 attributes are Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, Chesed, Givura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. These are the 10, we'll call it, attributes or characteristics of Kadosh Baruch Hu that he used to create the world. And every time a person is looking at his tzitzit, the 5 strings, the 5 knots on each side is supposed to remind you of these 10 attributes of Hashem. And therefore, it could be that what Maran was telling us was actually a hint. What is this power? What is this segula of tzitzit that every time I look at it, that has the ability to protect me from avirot? The answer is, this could be it. That when we look at the tzitzit, the 5 and 5, we are reminded of this keter, Bina, Chokhmah, Chesed, Givura. It's the 10 ways that Hashem created the world. And therefore, as we look at the tzitzit, the reason why it has such an uncanny ability to protect us from the Yetzer is because of the Shemot of Hashem that are mixed in with the tzitzit. And now, Rabotai, we can explain the Arizal. If you look at source number 21, which is the final source, Kitvei Arizal, he says, Ki ayin, if you take the word ayin, which is I, Bigematria, Hey Pamim Shem Havaya. Okay, so let's do it ourselves. So ayin is what? Ayin is 70. Yud is 10, that's 80. Plus nun, which is 50. So 80 plus 50 is 130. So if you take Hashem's name of Havaya, which is 26. 26 times 5, because there's 5 knots on each string. 26 times 5 is 130. Exactly. So each time a person looks at the tzitzit, ayin keneged the 26 Havaya 5 times of the 5 knots is ayin, is 130. And we have 2 strings in front of us. Ubet pamim ayin begematria yud pamim havaya. Therefore, 10 knots times havaya, which is 260, which is ayin times 2. And therefore, that's the kiddush of tzitzit, Rabotai. That every single time we look at the tzitziyot, we're reminded of Hashem's name. 26 times 5, which is gematria ayin, which is all the depthness of Keter and Chokhmah, Bina, Chesed, Givura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchut. And it's these Kiddusha that extends onto our eyes. And with these eyes, our eyes and our hearts are protected from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And now we understand Rabotai. Now we finally understand the Noam Elimelech that we first began the class with. Noam Elimelech asked, he said, why is it dafka in our generation that has to focus on the mitzvah of tzitzit the most? Well, it could be because our generation has the most difficult time with Inyan Kedusha. If everywhere we look, we have more promotion and more advertisements of arayot and promiscuity and immorality, and something where in America people celebrate what's called Pride Month, where people could go along and they're flaunting their disgustingness, their immorality. Exactly. It's this, and not only that, but the White House could actually hang this flag in the front of the building itself to tell us that this is the time we have to hold on to our tzitzit the most. That's why the Noam Elimelech makes sense. Why is it our generation? What is the special connection between tzitzit and our generation? The answer is because tzitzit protects us from immorality, from arayot. And it's this generation that is the most decadent, that is the most negative in society. If it's our generation, we must hold on to tzitziyot even more, Rabotai. And that's the lesson behind tzitzit. The tzitzit, the segula behind tzitzit, what pushes us more, the significance behind the mitzvah is that when we wear it, not only does it remind us of the mitzvah, it also protects us from the avirot itself. Shabbat shalom.
Wow.